Okay, so what would you say is the general state of the UK music industry at the moment?
Oh, a nice easy question to start with. It's as healthy
in
and
broad
it's as
terms, you know.
well, in broad terms, it's as healthy as it's always been. Of course, the recording side of the industry is changing massively because the record companies are in deep trouble, and there's all the download side of things. But I think on the live music side, it's actually healthier than ever. The advent of MySpace and online fora have give bands a greater and wider opportunity to become instantly recognisable, and get out on the road.
Yeah, I mean, the live music sector's gone through some unprecedented growth. Do you think that's going to continue?
Yes, although I still unfortunately feel that a lot of the English bands are quite talentless bastards. Please excuse me. But I do find that a lot of them can't produce on stage what they seem to be able to produce on record. So,
right.
Hey.
I'm going to jump in, and instantly we're going to have a bit of a debate. The live side, we work with a lot of live venues, a lot of live promoters, and the ticket numbers are dropping, and they're dropping pretty rapidly at the moment. These are for shows that are from December onwards. The small shows, which are the 200 capacity to maybe up to 350, 400 in London, are just surviving. The next wave, though, from the 500 up to the 1,000 to 2,000 capacities, are really struggling to shift tickets at the moment.
Do you think that's because of the current economy here in the UK?
I think it's directly related to it. There's the amount of money available for people to spend at the end of the month has just dropped.
But I think that's a lot of the big tours I've heard have dropped from sort of places like Wembley Stadium down to Brixton Academy, a drop of like 6,000 people. But I think it's a levelling out. It's like in those old days when the sort of giant record companies sort of took over all the other little record companies, but then the little shoots underneath came up, like Stiff Records. It gives a chance, it levels the playing field again. It's going to sort of sort out the dross. It's not going to be easy, but it's time for sort of small little indie promoters and that to take the small clubs and say, all right, you've got a dead night. I've got 6 bands coming in from Australia. We're going to put them here, there, and everywhere. We can make a little tour up.
Right.
Yeah, it's some of the big promoters and the big artists. They may be losing out, but it's opportunity time as well.
Right.
And in terms of the recording industry, which Rusty touched on, is in a bit of trouble. I think it's perhaps a little bit more than a little bit of trouble. To the point where we arrange meetings now. If we're having a meeting with a major label, we'll often that meeting could be six weeks to maybe 2 months in advance of when we book it, and we have a bookie almost in the office who makes bets on whether the person will still have a job by the time we have a meeting.
Oh, God.
And it's around about 50% chance at the moment. It is literally people are leaving in droves from those companies. The revenues are dropping they're being reported to be dropping at around about 10% year on year, but I think it's going to get a lot worse as we certainly head into 2009. Christmas is always seen as the big retail time to save the year, and the year's always bad.
Yeah.
Christmas comes along and it's going to save everything. It may struggle this year.
Right.
And so the beginning of 2009 from the recording industry point of view could be quite a desolate place in the UK.
Well, as a band manager, we're actually going through that now, is that our record company has almost ceased to be, and so I've been left with a couple of boxes of records. The rest of our stock was destroyed. We had no choice in getting hold of it, but we're stuck in a contract that we can't actually reproduce that new album for another 11 months now. We've sort of got it on a little leg timer, so we're in the process of having to go in and record new stuff.
Yeah.
So we've suffered from this economic downturn.
But also, as Rusty said, good opportunity for the little guy. It's never been a better opportunity, because the control of the market has now shifted, and it's moving away from the companies that used to be in the middle of the value chains and controlling the supply to the market, to now the little guys that can access the market directly. So the big companies are struggling. The little companies, actually, it's a great opportunity.
And so, like the giants, like Live Nation, that were sort of basically they were promoters, but now they've gone into it's called the 360 mode, isn't it? They go into, they own the venues, they've started buying publishing, and they just pay Madonna some unbelievable amount to own a lock, stock and barrel for the next 10 years.
Jay-Z,
so
Nickelback.
They're tying it all up. They do the merch, they do the publishing, they'll put out the records, they put them on tour, they provide the tour support, they provide the equipment. I mean, it's their only way. As one sector falls, the other sector technically will come up for them. But it is a land of opportunity.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What would you say are the key media players in the UK at the moment?
Radio is still very, very dominant, but again they're also noticing revenue problems. The advertisers are shifting to online models, and so yes, it's still the dominant media force is radio. If you can get a decent DJ, Radio 1 DJ, to get behind your project, then things are going to start happening for you because everyone's plugged into that. It's the same, I guess, in Australia. It's no different here, really. Magazines are still very dominant. You get a good write-up in NME, and promoters start pushing your shows harder. The publishers will start hanging around. The record labels will start making themselves known. And yeah, I mean, at the level we're talking about for bands coming in from Australia, if you can get a decent review. The online mags now also very important, such as Drowned in Sound. If you can get those guys to give you a good review, they're very well respected at grassroots level.
And I think also that it works if you've got good reviews in Australia as well, to bring those. I mean, there was a time where that was just nothing. Yeah. Right. But there's some respected, like Mess and Noise and things Triple out J. there. Yeah. Well, hey, Triple J, of course. Yeah. But that if you do have good reviews from there, they can carry over a little bit here, you know. But it's very hard. I mean, people like NME that used to be, they used to have their sort of rival, which was Melody Maker way back. So there was a competition. Now there's no competition really for NME, and I rather find that although they can give you a good write-up, they tend to follow now rather than lead. I think their reviewers are seen at the new Buzz concerts. They're not making the buzz.
Correct.
They're you know, I mean, we can make the buzz here with a good bit of marketing and in the right direction. We can make the buzz, and the NME guys will come along and write about it, but they don't create it like they used to.
One of the big shifts that is happening is obviously onto online, but word of mouth. And the kids, I mean, we have our office up in Camden, which is sort of the centre of the live grassroots side of the industry in the UK. And you talk to the kids on the streets, and they're not really listening to radio anymore, and they're not buying the magazines, but they're online and they're communicating, and they've got their forums and they've got their MySpace interaction. They're on Facebook. And we can sell out shows in London for a band that no one's heard of, that have had no press, they've had no radio, no one's even in the industry talking about them. We can put them on and fill 300 people in a venue purely by word of mouth of their fan base. And these are the 14 to 18-year-old kind of demographic here. Right. So there is that shift happening. So almost the do-it-yourself model is starting to actually take hold over here now.
Okay, and what about consumer tastes in the UK? I mean, what are the current trends for this year, do you think?
Well, unfortunately, the sort of the reality TV shows are still sort of holding the sort of dominant sway over what I call the sort of the recorded and disc market. I mean, the X Factors and all of that, which, okay, there may be talent there, but it's not what I'm interested in. And unfortunately, the UK does have a lot, you know, it really is sort of media driven like that. It's forced down their necks daily, weekly, monthly. So, I mean, that's the main consumer trend, and I think that's where it's hard for Australian bands coming out over there, is that you're fighting this trend. There's that sort of marketed style of the industry, then there's the indie part of the industry, and then there's us guys at the bottom, you know, really struggling to get onto that tier. But there is opportunity.
Well, number one this week is Las Vegas.
Yeah.
They were unheard of 3 months ago.
Yeah. There's a big...
and now just going off, so I missed the start. Apologies for that.
That's all right. Martin Alban, everyone.
Yeah. Fucking horrible train
Martin,
journey.
Martin,
Full of
hi there,
people
Martin.
that just had a head
Matthew, Martin, can I ask you to just introduce yourself just quickly for the audience here in Australia who maybe don't know you as well as some of us?
Okay, Martin Elborn. I've booked Glastonbury for the last 20 years. Co-founded WOMAD. I'll book about another 4 or 5 festivals, and I co-promote the Great Escape, which is sort of the main showcase festival in the UK now, or Europe. And used to be the agent for the Smiths and the Order. And I say this morning reminded me why I never got a normal job. And it's actually even worse because the headline, the Metro's like the sort of free paper they give out to all commuters, and the headline today is 110,000 people lose their jobs in the city, and of course 90% of the people on my train were going to jobs in the city. But anyway, so going back to Las Vegas, so they're like a new band from Scotland. They actually played Great Escape early this year. I booked them for Glastonbury. They cost me like 500 quid. Now, even going back to what Mark said, I mean, I knew about the band because of the Barfly bookers, who are kind of much on the ground, closer to the ground than I am. They played about 12 o'clock in the John Peel stage. That stage officially holds 8,000. There was 20,000 people watching them. And I say, and this week they've gone to number 1. And, you know, and the other thing is about the UK, is I mean, because that band, apart from the fact there was clearly a huge underground buzz on them, was every national newspaper gave them a rave review last week. Yeah. So in my local supermarket, which normally there's about 20 records you can buy, you know, the top shelf was all Las Vegas. Yeah. So it is an example of something that works. And the other classic band at Glastonbury this year, who cost me $5,000 for 2 shows, was Vampire Weekend. They reckon they pulled 70,000 people to the second stage, which is a record for the second stage.
Vampire Weekend are part of this new folk revival thing that's going on. You got Dodos, Fleet Foxes. There's a big element of the folk Americana, those bands that have been not necessarily ignored, but not really had that opportunity for some time. So there's almost this divide that's happening where you get all the pop stuff floating around at the top. The odd one pokes up, and then at the bottom now there seems to be the really instrument-focused and great songwriting-focused artists that are getting national coverage and getting good radio play as well.
And what age group is that attracting, do you think?
It's attracting a very young age group. It's been quite surprising. I mean, you have Laura Marling will play to 500 18-year-olds, and you know, so there's this.
I think it starts off with a young age group.
Yeah.
But when you hit that crossover point, like Las Vegas just done, then suddenly it's everyone, and like, you know, all the 40-year-old fat blokes from a local pub. Probably by the end of the week, 5 or 6 of them will have bought that album simply because they want to still look like they're sort of vaguely trendy and cool. But they'll probably only buy 5 of those albums a year.
Yeah.
Cool. What would you say is happening in the independent music sector at the moment?
I mean, trend-wise, music, it's kind of a bit all over the shape. At one level, it's very healthy, and that you can get these success stories. Right. But obviously, clearly on the downside, I mean, everyone's, you know, short of money, and it's kind of like it's translating that initial sort of almost like self-made buzz into that next stage, particularly when you haven't got money for a decent press officer,
well,
etc.
Right. And as you said, the headline in the London newspaper is the big bank that went belly up.
Lehman.
Now they reckon 110,000 people are going to lose their jobs or whatever. That's 110,000 people who won't have the money to buy tickets, merch, go to a gig, as much as they may have gone out once a week. Yeah. They may, hey, what am I going to do next month? I can't go to this gig at Brixton Academy. I can't go to the little club and spend £5 just for these next 2 months till I get another job. There's going to be the knock-on effect through the industry in some form or another.
I think it'll get it even slightly bigger because those are the guys that used to go into restaurants and put down £100 tips.
Yeah.
And they'd be spent, you know, they'd have a £10,000 entertainment budget per month, and they used to spend lavishly in all the places around town, buying all the TVs and the new cars and the new houses, which would then flow on into the rest of London with money floating about. And at the centre of the money pile has dried up.
No, it's going to hit all over. I mean, I was speaking to the head of an oil company, funny enough, last night. In theory, they're doing fantastically well. They're just literally, as of last night, all capital expenditure put on hold.